Hey there, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels, and today I am back with another book that's been on my TBR for quite some time. And then I started a booktube channel and I found out that this book is actually one of the most hyped series on booktube, incidentally, which I'm not gonna lie, it kind of spoiled me to get to it sooner, and I'm happy that I did. What is that series? You can tell from the title already. It's The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, and the book I'm talking about today is The Grace of Kings. So, like I said, one of the most hyped series on YouTube. There's probably a couple of thousand videos like this out there, but I'll still share my take on it anyway, because why not? Very few people watch my videos anyway. Yeah, so what is The Grace of Kings about? We have an interesting story where Emperor Mapidere, he unified the land of Dara for the first time into one gigantic empire. The problem is that Emperor Mapidere is now on his deathbed and his empire is going to crumble. We have numerous rebellions that spring up with everyone who has an issue with his tyrannical rule basically taking their chance to take up arms and break free of his rule, and they eventually coalesce behind these two, probably the two most significant characters, and we end up with essentially two rebellions that come together to overthrow the empire. On one hand, we have the more standard the more standard leader in Matazindu, who is like this legendary warrior character. He's out for vengeance against the emperor because of the treatment of his family, that kind of thing. And he's more like this stoic legendary hero, warrior, that kind of character. And then on the other hand, we have the charismatic Riz Lord known as Kunigaru, who he just has this charm, this wit, this sensationalism factor going for him, and he starts off as essentially like a fixer, swindler, a fast talking guy who somehow becomes like the leader of a bandit troop, and through a bit of creative intervention from the gods of this realm, he somehow became heralded as the next king, the next emperor, and eventually he found his way to the top of a rebellion. And the story of The Grace of Kings is essentially of the story of these two characters and this absolutely huge cast of characters around them, who they lead this rebellion, they take control of the empire essentially, but at the end of the day there can only be one emperor. They form a very close bond, they form a very close friendship, but as I said, there can only be one emperor, and the people who surround them aren't necessarily willing to share power. And yeah, that kind of summarizes everything in a nice little nugget, I think. So right off the bat, I think I'll address one of the most interesting things one of the most interesting choices, and one of the things I also liked about this book, which I think is also one of the things that leads to its biggest complaint, and it's the way it's plotted. So this is an absolutely massive epic, and Ken Liu takes his time. He takes his time right from the get-go. He starts very slowly. He introduces his characters. He builds out his world. He fleshes them out. He introduces all the ancillary and supporting characters. He takes his time. He builds a very strong foundation before he really delves into the meat of things. And because of that, the book, for quite a lot of people, I guess, it starts very slow. Unless you're interested in these characters, unless you're interested in this world, and you're interested in what's going on in general, it's going to be a bit of a slog. And I think that's one of the reasons why this book is quote-unquote considered the worst of the series. Now, personally, I think there's a bit of survivorship bias going on there, because really you kind of need to be a fan of the series to read further in. So obviously only the fans will read the later books. So that's whereas like a more general population would read the first book, so that's why the first book would have a more mixed kind of reception. Anyway, all that aside, the we have this time that's taken to build a strong foundation, introduce us to our characters, set in all of that, and then the story starts to ramp up in all the great ways that with everything that we love about epic fantasy. All we have the battle, we have the battles, we have the scheming, we have the plotting, we have numerous threads running through the story, we have numerous plots, we have a bunch of different character arcs, we even have the involvement of the gods in this story, because they may not be omnipotent and omniscient, but they are a force to be reckoned with, and they're essentially treating this entire exercise as basically a human horse race, where they'll pick people that they root for, and they'll nudge and twist and kind of give them different legs up and these kind of things. Like one of them, his involvement in particular actually leads to quite a bit of technological innovation, and that was quite interesting to read about. But yeah, that's kind of what you have to expect just from the plot, just from the structure of this book. A very slow start that takes its time to build everything up before it really ramps into the story, into the real meat of the story. And speaking of like the technology and that kind of thing, that kind of brings me to the second thing I liked about this book, and it's that I didn't really spot anything that's like you could really consider magical per se. Like there are some fantastical elements, of course. They're like in terms of like the fact that there are gods present and active, but there's no magic per se. Instead, everything is kind of a result of technology and innovation and creativity, and that was. It kind of reminds me of Guy Gavriel Kay in that respect, in that there's not necessarily a lot of magic going on. The magic is more baked into the story itself. It's more baked into just the wonderful writing, the characterization, an intense story, that kind of thing. It's a more subtle, not magic in terms of presentation on the page, but more magical in terms of the sensation that it leaves you with. And I think there is a factor of that in this book, because one of the things and probably the thing I did enjoy the most out of all over the course of this book is just Ken Liu's writing. He is a wonderful writer. He has a way of portraying things that just has this unique feel to it. It's very distinctly him. Like there's nothing special about the wording he uses. It's just the way he puts everything together. There's the way he depicts certain scenes, the dialogue, everything comes together in just this wonderful feel that I did. Having read the other books after this, it's very much his style. It's not flowery, it's not over the top, but at the same time it's not basic, it's not straightforward, it's not workmanlike. Like we'll get these, just, like I said, just the way that scenes are depicted, the dialogue, it has just a feel to it, like a slightly mythic feel at times. In some cases, a slightly otherworldly feel that for me it's very on brand with just this type of story, given it's based off of China, which has such like a rich history and rich culture to essentially emulate and kind of build off of. So like I love that. I think that's bar none my favorite part of the book. Overall, absolutely wonderful intro to an absolutely amazing series. Like I enjoyed it immensely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. What else can I say about this book? Yeah, that's it. I guess I'll call it there. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.